this is Shweta from Dharamshala Animal Rescue.
Hi everyone, this is Amy with Primates Incorporated and ReelTime Animal Rescue.
Hello everyone, this is Becky, a Blue for the Horslingshire Misfit Mustangs.
ReelTime Animal Rescue with Julie McLaughlin of Indiana Skunk Rescue.
Yep, get her. You got her? Judy, God bless you. Oh my God.
This is a big brown bat who is really enjoying his mealworms.
They actually just had their breakfast.
Hello and welcome. I'm Krista Embry, founder of ReelTime Animal Rescue and Compassion Education Connect and Inspire. What you're about to see today is happening right now in the real world, and you're going to meet people who are helping animals and protecting our planet. When you learn with compassion, you don't just gain knowledge, you create change. So today isn't just about watching, it's about you and the difference you can make in our world. Welcome to Compassion Education Connect and Inspire. We're so glad you're here.
So fantastic. Welcome everyone to another Compassion Education class. And we're going to go ahead and get started with me trying to share my screen. And then one of you being very bold right away to unmute yourself and tell me if you can see two birds on the screen.
Yes. Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, we will go ahead and get started with our presentation. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so some of you, go ahead and raise your hands if you remember being at a class and seeing these two birds before. Okay, I see some of you are raising your hands. I'm just looking up and down. Some of you remember this class. So this is part of a topic that we are going to be discussing. It is a wildlife biology series with Mr. O. Of course, that's myself. And today's specific topic is going to be on the status of animals, especially if they're not doing so well in the wild. So this class is entitled Threatened, Endangered, and Extinct. Now, most of you already have seen this before, and so as school goes, often we need to review matters, and so we are going to review what these words mean. So we're going to pull out the chalkboard, and we're going to write on the screen the word, and we're going to define it. So the first big word is the word threatened. I know a lot of you have already seen this before, but as a review for those who've already seen this before, threatened means that the animal is likely to become endangered. Threatened means likely to become endangered. But of course, that's very difficult since we use the word that was in the title endangered to define threatened. So what does endangered mean? Well, endangered means that it is in danger of extinction. And of course, we use the word extinction, which also came from the title in the definition. So what does extinction mean? Extinct means that it is no longer existing. It means it is gone and it is not going to come back. So threatened is in yellow, extinct is in red, because this is like the status. Threatened means that we have some problems with this animal. It is likely to become endangered. If it's endangered, it's doing not so great in the wild. Its populations are not so large. It is in danger of extinction. But if it actually becomes extinct, then it no longer exists. So before we go any further, I believe somebody is trying to come into the classroom. Let me see if I can let them in without stopping sharing my screen. Let's see. Let me see. Okay, sorry, I'm going to have to go ahead, and I thought there was a way to do it, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let this family in, so bear with me for a moment. Thank you for your patience as we let someone into this classroom so they can learn with you all about threatened, endangered, and extinct. Okay, let's see. Who is trying to get in? Give me just a second. Okay, I believe they have made it in. Welcome to those who just joined. We are just talking right now about animals that are threatened, endangered, or extinct. So, hello, it's me again. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen all over again. And bear with me. Okay. So tell me if somebody can unmute themselves and tell me if you can see the words on the chalkboard again.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so there we go. Threatened, endangered, and extinct. Okay, let's let the computer load for a second to get ready. There we go. Okay. Okay, so threatened, endangered, and extinct. Okay, so as a way of review, there is an agency called the IUCN, which stands for the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. The big words are IUCN, the first letter. So the IUCN has something called the Red List that they use to identify every species of animal and define how it's doing. Is it doing well or is it doing terrible? So basically, I'm just going to go quickly through these. Data deficient means we haven't studied them enough. We don't actually know how it's doing. We don't know how big its population is or how small its population, if its habitat is okay, et cetera, et cetera. If it's of least concern, this means that it's doing okay. They don't say the words okay. They say least concern, which means we should have some concern about the animal. It's just of least concern. The next one is near threatened, which means there's some alarm bells going that tells us we need to pay some attention to it. The next category is vulnerable, which means that it is vulnerable. It is at risk of going extinct. The next one is endangered, which we already talked about. Then there's even a level called critically endangered, which means it's really endangered and really close to extinction. There's a level called extinct in the wild, which means that it's not gone. Maybe it lives in zoos or private collections, but it no longer lives in the wild. And of course, extinct in black means it is gone and we're never going to get it back. And the last one is called not evaluated, which is like the first one. We just haven't studied it enough to say anything about its conservation status. Okay, that is all review for most of you. So we're going to now go and talk about our featured animal. And so the one we're going to focus on today is called the passenger pigeon. Raise your hands or give me a thumbs up if you have ever heard of the passenger pigeon before. And I'm just going to look up my screen. So a lot of you have heard of the passenger pigeon. Give me a thumbs down or if you've not heard of the passenger pigeon before. Okay, there are some thumbs down because some of you have never heard of the passenger pigeon before, and that is very fair because the passenger pigeon, very sadly, is a species that is no longer with us. It is extinct. It is absolutely gone. And so the best I can do for you today is show you a painting of a pair of passenger pigeons. The passenger pigeon was found in North America. It was found all over Eastern North America, where at least one of our classes this morning are joining from. If you're from the New England area, historically, you would have had breeding populations of passenger pigeons. So the red map, the red portion of the map shows where passenger pigeons used to make their nests. And the yellowish orangish section shows the entire range that they would have gone to after they were done breeding and nesting and raising their young. Now, the passenger pigeon was most notable for being the most numerous bird that has ever existed on the planet in the wild. This is, of course, just a painting because we don't even have photographs of the flocks of passenger pigeons, but they used to say that the flocks were so large that they would darken the sun if they would fly overhead. And so there was an estimate done in the 1870s, so almost 250 years ago, that said that the one single flock of passenger pigeons, not the entire population, but one flock of passenger pigeons numbered 2.2 billion birds in one single flock. Now, this is mind-blowing to have that many birds in one single flock, let alone to know that there's even more. What's even more mind-blowing is the fact that this bird went extinct. How could a bird that numbered in the multiple billions go extinct? Well, there are reasons for why it went extinct. For one reason, because the bird was so numerous and it was very seasonal. After it was done breeding, it would migrate and it would wander around North America, Canada, and the United States in humongous flocks numbering millions, and sometimes a billion or more birds were in one flock. And so many people would shoot them because the passenger pigeon was a very tasty meat, and it was shot in the hundreds of thousands, and they would put them into barrels and ship them into the big cities, and then they would eat pigeon meat, which was very nice to eat in those days. Now, if you have a population of multiple billions and you shoot a few hundred or a few thousand, whatever you feel about hunting, that's not going to damage the population. But what happened was a few things were going on. One was that they were shooting them in really, really, really large numbers, to the point that they might shoot 100,000 in one single day, which is a really large number. But the bigger problem that was not understood, because this would have been classified as a data deficient bird, they just didn't study it enough to understand the effects of how they were hunting them. So of course, this is just a museum model of real passenger pigeons. They are, from the past. They were stuffed in order to preserve their skins, but it's representing the way that passenger pigeons would make their nests. They formed huge colonies of passenger pigeons, and they may have numbered 100 million at a time nesting in one forest. And when you would have this many birds nesting together, what was happening was only a very small number of the adults were actually laying one egg. The rest of them were in the colony, but they weren't actually laying eggs because there were not enough resources to support these huge nesting colonies of passenger pigeons. And so it was kind of in combination with the hunters shooting too many and the passenger pigeons not all breeding every year, because they just didn't practice all breeding. Their numbers started to go lower and lower. And at the same time, where the passenger pigeon was nesting was where some of the biggest cities in North America were being developed in the 1800s, and they needed a lot of trees. They needed a lot of wood to make their houses and their buildings. So they started to cut down the forest, and before anyone realized that the overhunting, the low breeding population, and the habitat loss of cutting down the forest was actually affecting the numbers, by the 1890s, people began to realize, oh, these flocks that used to darken the skies, they're not as big anymore, but they would still shoot them. And then the next year, they would realize, oh, there's not as many passenger pigeons left, but they would still shoot them, and they would still cut down the trees, until by the 1900s, no one could find flocks of passenger pigeons. And by that point, some scientists began to realize, oh, maybe we made a mistake with how we were hunting and overhunting and cutting down the forest for passenger pigeons. There's not even enough for us to shoot anymore. And so at that point, a few biologists, a few scientists tried to rescue the passenger pigeon by taking them from the wild, and there was very few left, and putting them in zoos. But unfortunately, because the passenger pigeon needed a huge colony to want to breed, to stimulate breeding behavior, they were unsuccessful with ever breeding them in the zoos. And in the year 1918, this bird, her name was Martha, she was a female passenger pigeon. She died in the Cincinnati Zoo in Ohio. And when she died in 1918, she was the very last passenger pigeon that ever lived. That was over 100 years ago. And because the scientists and the people weren't able to react fast enough, they lost the most numerous bird species that has ever existed in the world, which just is a very, very tragic story. And so even though this was a very, very beautiful pigeon, it had some really nice coloration on it, sadly, you are never going to see a wild flock of passenger pigeons, even if you're from North America where these were native to, because they have gone extinct. Okay, now we're actually going to move on from this very, very sad story of extinction. And we're going to talk about another species, which I'm just going to break it to you. It also has a sad ending. So prepare the Kleenex and the tissue. This is going to be another sad story. And I have a reason for sharing this with you. Okay, I see lots of tears, so I apologize for the tears in advance. Okay, so the next one we're going to talk about is called the Carolina parakeet. And I already told you it's a sad story, but you would have also known it was a sad story by my first photo, which is not a photo at all. It's a painting of the only bird that used to nest in northern North America. This was called the Carolina parakeet, and it was historically the only native bird species that could be found in northern North America. It was called the Carolina parakeet. It was a beautiful parakeet with a reddish, orangish, and yellow head, a very green body. It was very colorful. It was like the passenger pigeon in that it formed large colonies, large flocks, never as numerous as the passenger pigeon, but it was still widespread across North America, specifically in the United States, where it could be found in a good portion of the United States. But this bird, over the course of about 100 years of settlers from America moving to the West, for some reason, this bird began to just disappear. It wasn't so much that people were shooting them. It's a small bird, so you wouldn't have shot it for food. Some farmers shot them because it would attack apple orchards and fruit orchards, and so some farmers didn't like it, but that wasn't the main reason why it eventually disappeared. A main reason was because its prime nesting area was in treed areas, forested areas, and just like the passenger pigeon, by losing its habitat, it lost the place where it would make its nest for its young. But that alone was probably not the only reason why it disappeared. It may have also disappeared. It actually probably disappeared also because of diseases that this bird was not able to cope with. And so bird diseases would have affected the flock until by 1918, the last nesting bird was found in Florida at the south of the United States. And after that, biologists and scientists could not find any more. And in I think it was in 1920 something, a few years after the passenger pigeon, the Carolina parakeet also went extinct. And sadly, this beautiful parakeet, which was from North America, can no longer be found at all. Not in zoos, not in the wild, nowhere. You can only find stuffed specimens in the museum. Okay. One of the reasons that I haven't mentioned that this also had some problems was because parrots and parakeets, which are basically small parrots, have always been very desirable for the pet trade, which means people have wanted to have parrots for pets. And so this was another reason that put pressure on the Carolina parakeet, and a reason why it went extinct in the end, because in the last days when there was only a few left, the very last ones that were still in the wild were being caught and taken into people's homes as pets. And they were no longer breeding, they were no longer producing babies. And so the very last ones that could have survived in the wild and could have had babies to make more Carolina parakeets were being taken out of the wild for pets. And this is something that has caused a lot of problems with animals, is people have wanted them for pets. But very sadly, the Carolina parakeet can't even be found in a pet store or in the pet trade. It is unfortunately very extinct. Okay, I think that is enough sad stories for today, don't you think? I think we can stop telling sad stories. So I'm going to stop sharing. We are now going to move away. Give me a second to change my screen back to me so we don't have to think about very sad stories. Okay, at this point, I have a reason that I brought up the passenger pigeon and the Carolina parakeet. One is, of course, for you all to have a lot of awareness. This is a class where we're learning about animals and also learning how to properly appreciate and respect animals where they ought to be and how we ought to take care of them. And sadly, we have learned some really hard lessons from the Carolina parakeet and the passenger pigeon about how not to take care of animals and things that we can do that can harm animals. And so I like to have this class, as sad as it is, just to remind us of sad stories so that we don't repeat it again. So I don't know if any of you have noticed, but right behind me on my wall, I've had this for all the classes I've ever taught. I don't know if you've ever noticed it, but this is that picture of the passenger pigeon, which I keep down there because it's a reminder to us that animals that are threatened can become endangered and they can become extinct. So it's up to us to take action and make sure these things don't happen. Okay, now I know there's a lot of hands raised up right now, and so I will ask for questions in a little bit, but we'll hold off on questions for just a little bit because I have a special visitor today. You might notice that in addition to this painting you've never seen before, paid attention to before, I also have a yellow towel. The yellow towel is not the visitor, don't worry. But underneath the yellow towel, I have a little friend who my family has just recently adopted. We rehomed this pet because the previous owners, actually, I think they did a really good job of taking care of this animal, but it had gotten to the point where they were no longer able to take care of it properly. So they actually did the right thing, and they notified some people that they didn't feel suitable to take care of this animal anymore, and they were looking for a proper home for it. So I found the advertisement or the information on the website, and so I said, I would be interested in caring for an animal. I like animals. And so we had a few conversations, and eventually he felt good that this animal over here would come to live with us. And so I'm going to reveal this, but before I reveal what this animal is, I will tell you a few basic facts. One is we've only had him for 1 week, actually a few days less than 1 week. We've not had him very long. He is 5 years old, which means he is not a baby. He is not something that can be trained and something that is easy to change his behaviors of. His name is Cooper. He is a huge biter. He loves to bite, and some of his favorite things to bite are fingers and ears. So I am going to bring him out at some point, but if he bites my ears especially, I will probably say ow very loudly because it hurts a lot when he bites my ears. But when he is friendly, he's friendly. So I'm going to bring him out, and maybe some of you are kind of thinking what Cooper might be, but here we go. I'm going to go ahead and take the towel off, and we are going to go ahead. Come on, buddy. There we go. This is Cooper. He is a green-cheeked parakeet. He is also from the Americas. He's from South America. We're going to show you him in just a second. I'm going to bring him out if you can't see him. You might need to be on, if you're not on a computer, you might have trouble seeing him because he's on this side, but you might be hearing him. And he is looking very excited. I'm just taking the rod off of the door to his cage. He is fully flighted, and he loves to come out. So he's going to come out with his beak. There he is. Do you want to come a little closer, Cooper? Now, he is fine with being on my hands, but just because I want to protect myself, I'm just going to put a glove on initially because he bites it right away. He nibbles on it, and then he happily goes onto my glove. And this is him. This is Cooper, our green-cheeked parakeet. He is actually looking very excitedly. There's a computer in front of him. There's a phone right there, and there's a computer over here with the same screen. He's just looking at all of you very curiously. Parrots and parakeets are some of the most intelligent birds in the whole bird world. And so he is just absorbing. This is his first class time. This is his first time joining a compassionate education class, and he is doing great. He has not eaten any of my fingers yet. He hasn't gone for my ears yet, but he is right now just learning what everything is and what you all are doing looking at him. So Cooper, like I said, he is rehomed. We took him into our house because we felt that we could offer him a good home. And so we're just learning how to take care of him. And he is learning how to be with us. What you hear right now is his actual attempt to make words. He is actually trying to talk right now. His previous owner said he never talks, but I've been spending a lot of time with Cooper, and that sound he is making is not his parrot sound. He is trying to imitate my voice. Right, buddy? So listen very carefully to this whole class. You may hear him say something. The closest I heard him to saying a word was, hello. So we may hear that during this class time. If you hear it, put your hands up or give me a smiley face or something to let me know that you heard him make an actual word. Otherwise, he makes other sounds. Sometimes when I do this, nope, you're not going to do it for me, are you? Sometimes he tries to imitate that voice as well. But when he's lonely, when he's bored, he squawks. And in my opinion, he sounds like a car alarm. He just goes, and sometimes he doesn't stop until somebody shows up. And so this is something that if you ever wanted to have a legal pet parrot or parakeet, you have to be aware that they are really, really intelligent birds, and they have high needs. They have a lot of needs. They need a lot of stimulation. They need a lot of companionship. And Cooper, the green-cheeked parakeet is very similar to the Carolina parakeet. He is not a solo bird who would live by himself in the wild. They live in colonies, and because of that, he needs to have friendship and companionship. And so we could get him another parakeet friend, which we might do in the future, but he also is perfectly happy with human friends. And so in order for us to take care of him properly, we also have to spend a lot of time with him. He is a very small bird, but he has a humongous voice and a humongous sound that he makes that lets us know that he is not happy. But right now he seems perfectly happy, and I kind of trust him right now to not bite my ear. So I'm gonna go ahead and let him onto my shoulder, and he just is he's really great. But when he's not stimulated, when he's had a hard day, he likes to bite. You can see where my ear is, right? You can see that it's right there for him to reach, and so I really hope he doesn't decide to bite. Real quickly, somebody's trying to come into the class. We're gonna let them in just a second. There we go. They've made it into the class. Welcome to our compassionate education class. We've got Cooper on my shoulder. Now, you might have seen a little bit of Cooper. You can see he's quite small. You know, if you were to put my hands out, he's smaller than the width of my hands. He's about 6 inches long, and he is a typical parrot in many ways. I'm actually going to see if I can get him back onto my glove. Okay, there we go. So he's doing fantastic. He's behaving really, really well. He must know it's class time. So parrots, you know, all of you, you've all seen a Luca, right? You've all seen my owl, right? I think all of you have seen my owl. Parrots and owls actually have some surprising similarities. One of the similarities they have is in their feet, where they have 2 toes that point forward and 2 toes, I don't know if you can see that super well, but 2 toes that point backwards. It's a little bit hard to see it. Oh, he's going to show it to us when he scratches his head. He's got 2 and 2. That term is called zygodactylous feet. And it's actually very similar to the reason why an owl has zygodactylous feet. It helps him to grab onto branches really well because parrots spend a lot of time in trees. And so for that, they need to perch and grab on really well. So like an owl, he has zygodactylous feet, and we are not going to bite fingers, right? Did you see when I put my finger up, he kind of reached for because he loves to nibble on fingers. But because he has been so remarkably good, I'm going to give him one of his absolute favorite treats, which we discovered is sliced almonds. Oh, he's going forward to it. He sees it. So I'm going to give it to him. There we go. Let's show them. And so he's going to eat that. Oh, he dropped a piece of it, but he ate most of it. But he absolutely loves sliced almonds. Aha, there he is. Now he's grabbing with his foot. And that's going to help him to balance his beak and his foot in order to not drop it and get it into his mouth. You're doing fantastic, buddy. Now he's taking nice, delicate bites, so he eats all of it. With a lot of his other food, if he doesn't really like it, he takes a bite and then he drops it. With almonds, he really likes his almonds. So this is a great tool for me to bond with him, right? We're going to bond together with almonds so that he learns that I'm a good guy. I'm a nice guy. I take care of you. I'm going to take care of you really well. Okay, so zygodactylous feet. Also, he actually has a beak somewhat similar to an owl. He has a strong hooked beak that hooks from the top, and it also hooks from the bottom. But unlike an owl, he does not use it for eating meat. Very few parrots will ever eat meat. Parrots are fruit eaters. They eat vegetables, leaves. They eat vegetable matter. They're vegetarians. They hardly ever will eat insects. They'll eat an occasional insect here and there, but for the most part, they are fruit and seed eaters. And so their beak is not for ripping meat like an owl or like an eagle. Their beak is for cracking nuts open or cracking seeds open. And it is remarkable how able he is to manipulate a seed with his beak. So I'm going to try to show you. I'm going to grab a sunflower seed from his feed container. And let's see if he'll do it. He may drop it, but oh, he saw it. He was very excited. This is a sunflower seed, very small. It's a very small seed. And so I'm going to offer it to him. Obviously, the outside is not very digestible. He's not going to eat the outer shell. But let's see if he will. Aha. Let's see what he does. So he's cracking it open with his beak. And he's using his tongue, and he's already dropped all the shell off. This is all shell. He's just dropping it off in small pieces. And that's it. He ate the sunflower seed. And the reason why he was able to do that is because he was able to crack the seed open with his beak, with his upper and lower beak parts. But inside, he has a tongue that is very different from our tongue in the fact that inside of his tongue, he has 5 bones. We don't have tongue bones. We have a bone in our throat area that controls our tongue, but our actual tongue doesn't have bones. But parrots have 5 bones inside of their tongue that gives them the ability, almost like fingers, to open something, to manipulate something. And so he got his sunflower seed by using his tongue, the bony tongue, and his strong beaks in order to crack it open and then get the seed into his mouth. So thank you so much for demonstrating that to us. Now, I don't know if you can see it very well. I can see it mostly in this eye. One of his eyes is actually closing because I think he's getting a little bit sleepy, which is fantastic, which means he's probably not going to bite me. So I'm appreciating this behavior right now, Cooper. One other thing about parrots is I called him a green-cheeked parakeet. And so some of you may be wondering what's the difference between a parrot and a parakeet. Well, technically, all of them are parrots, but we generally refer to parakeets as the smaller ones. Parrots are large, parakeets are smaller, but you can often tell something about their behavior by just looking at the shape and the size of their body. If they have a nice long tail and very thin, slender wings, that means that in the wild, they spend a lot of the time flying long distances, as opposed to if they had a short tail and shorter wings, it means they kind of stay local and maybe just fly around a few trees. But this guy in the wild, every single day, they would fly long distances to find the best fruit trees, the best seeds, and then come back to their favorite nesting areas or the place where they would sleep at nighttime. Okay, his eyes are actively closing. I think he's a little bit tired. But before I put Cooper away and you can ask your questions, it's going to be difficult. I'm going to risk my life. And I'm going to put him on my other finger that doesn't have a glove, and he's going to nibble me first, but I think it's going to be okay. Okay, come on, buddy. There we go. Because I want you to see something. It's going to be a little bit difficult. Let me try to slide up to the camera a little bit. He turned away just at the right moment. Okay, if you look, let me try to take this glove off my hand so I can point it out. On this foot right here, don't bite me. You can, I don't know if you can see it. There's like a circular something on his foot. I don't know if can you see it right here? Don't bite me. Don't bite me. It's right here. I'm trying to point to it. Okay, some of you can see it. That circular thing is actually where he had an injury a few years ago, where he got his foot stuck on a piece of thread, and it started to constrict his toe. And he actually was taken to the vet, and he almost lost his toe. But now, remember how I told you he's zygodactylous with 2 toes pointing forward, 2 backwards? Well, it's actually not true anymore for him on one foot because one of his toes got stuck to the other one. And so now one of his toes is just stuck to the other one. And his nail, his claw, that normally they would keep trim by just perching on things. Now it doesn't touch the surface. And so it just keeps growing, and it grows in a circle. And so he's fine. He's very active, but it was just something that happened. So he has a little bit of an injury. He seems to be doing fine, but I'm going to have to learn in the next maybe 2 weeks, because it's getting quite long. I'm going to have to learn how to trim his nails, and not just his regular nails. I need to trim his nail that is growing into a circle, because if I don't, he will potentially get another injury. So another reason why we need to do lots of research of how to properly take care of a pet. But Cooper, you're doing so amazing that I'm going to go ahead and send you back to your cage for some privacy and for some quiet time. So everyone, you can say goodbye to Cooper. He's actually just going to be right here. You might still see him. I'm going to go ahead and put Cooper back in his cage. I hope he cooperates nicely, which he did. He went straight back into his cage, which is quite a relief, because some birds, especially parrots, would not like to go back in so quickly. But Cooper is showing us that he really likes attention. Aha. Did you see what I don't know if some of you could see that. He went straight for my fingers as I was sliding his rod in, because he loves to bite fingers. So that is Cooper. He is full of personality. He's got a lot going on. But before I say goodbye to him and start talking to you, I'm going to give him an almond, a nice large one for him to enjoy as a well-done treat for really doing an amazing job with you all for this compassion education class. Okay, now with that being said, he's still going to be here. Maybe not all of you can see it if you're on a phone or a tablet, but he's going to be right here. Now that I don't have a towel on, he can still see you, and he may squawk very loudly if he wants out again. We'll see if we bring him out again or not. Okay, that all being said, I do believe it is definitely question time, and there's been a lot of questions. So at this point, I will call on you to ask your question. Of course, you can ask about the passenger pigeon, the Carolina parakeet. You can ask anything you want to about Cooper, or anything else you would like to ask Mr. O. So why don't we just go in order what's on my screen? On my screen, I have the New Hampshire family raising their hands. So go ahead, unmute yourselves and ask your question.
About the pigeons you talked about,
Yes.
last year we saw a huge, like, black flock that flew over our house, and we stayed outside just watching it for 20 minutes. It would not go away.
It just kept going overhead for 20 minutes. Do you know what kind of bird they were?
Looked kind of blackish orange, but
Okay.
I don't know exactly what kind it was.
So in North America, where you live, some of the most common flocks of birds, especially in huge numbers like you're describing, are going to be the red-winged blackbird. That is actually a bird in my life. It's the biggest flock I've ever seen in my life is red-winged blackbirds. And then the other really common bird that flies in large flocks in the late summer and the autumn, kind of during migration time, is the mourning dove. It is actually somewhat similar to the passenger pigeon, a little bit smaller, a little bit less colorful, but it is one of the most numerous birds in North America. During most of the year, they're kind of just living in their pairs. They don't nest in big colonies like the passenger pigeon, but during migration time, when they're moving around, you can see them in large flocks. But my first guess would be red-winged blackbird. My second one might be mourning dove, but if you ever see it again, see if you can see really up close and get any more details, and you can let us know which flock you saw.
I did have one more detail from that from that flock. I did kind of see red stripes fluttering out, so I'm pretty sure it was a red-winged blackbird.
I 100% can guarantee you saw red-winged blackbirds. Well done. Really impressive thing to see, especially during migration when they just move in humongous numbers. But can you imagine multiplying that by like 10,000? That's what it would have been like to have seen the passenger pigeon years ago. Okay, we're going to move on to our class from Norwich. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Do passenger pigeons mate for life?
Did they mate for life? You know, the answer is I don't know, and I'm not sure all the scientists would have known because they went extinct a long time ago. And I doubt there was enough research to understand how they mated. My first guess is no, because they nested in such big colonies, and then they all moved away from their nesting area, and they wandered around North America, and then they came back. My guess is that they did not mate for life, but I don't know that because they went extinct over 100 years ago, and I don't think there's adequate science to definitely know did they or did they not mate for life. So it's very sad, but yeah. Based on habits, pigeons and doves are kind of 50-50, like 50% yes, 50% no. And so I'm not sure which way the passenger pigeon was. I will look that up though. Actually, you can look it up as well. See if there's any research or any scientific understanding. Did they or did they not? I know they nested in big colonies, but I don't know if they mated for life or not. It's a good question. Okay, we're gonna go move over to London, calling from upstairs. If you want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Micah?
Oh, Micah.
Is woolly mammoths and woolly rhinos distinct?
Okay, you're gonna have to interpret. What did he say?
Can you do it, Joanne? Are woolly mammoths and woolly rhinos extinct?
Yes, woolly mammoth, extinct species. Not for the same reason as the passenger pigeon or the Carolina parakeet. Part of it would have just been the climate was changing from the ice age to the modern age of temperatures that we're used to today. There probably was a lot of pressure from hunting. The woolly mammoth is known to have survived well into the time when like the pyramids in Egypt were being built. Did you know there were woolly mammoths when the Egyptians were building the pyramids? But over time, they just kept getting driven north to the islands, and they just failed to keep reproducing and producing new babies. So I'm sorry to report to you that they are extinct, which means no more woolly mammoths and no more woolly rhinos. We do have the elephant and we have the rhino, which are similar, but it is not what you're asking about. Okay, let's move on over to London, across the street from me.
I actually did hear him say parakeet. It was like
you heard this guy?
Yeah, it was like a chirp that sounded like it.
And you thought you heard the syllable?
Yeah, parakeet.
I was using the word parakeet a lot during this class, right? So maybe he was imitating me. I wasn't listening, but fantastic observation.
Also, when you bobbed your head, a few seconds later, he bobbed his head like that.
Yeah. Okay. Parrots are, honestly, they are probably the most intelligent of birds, and they have the most capacity to do human-like things, including imitating me, my voice, and I didn't even notice that he was imitating my head bob. So he's a fun guy. Yes, he bites my ears, but he's a fun guy to have around, and he performed really well for all of you. So well done, Cooper.
Yeah, there's one more thing. Did you hear about the python that needed surgery because they had like bone cancer?
I did not hear about the python that needed surgery. Did it make it?
Yeah, barely.
That's amazing. It would take a lot of skill from a vet to be able to do surgery on a snake because their anatomy is so different, and not many vets specialize or understand the anatomy that would be needed to understand how to do an operation, a surgery on a snake. So well done to that vet or that team of vets who did that. Okay, we're going to move across my screen. So now we're going to the Canary Wharf area. If you'd like to unmute yourself and raise your hand, you've already raised your hand, and go ahead and ask your question.
How big can passenger pigeons' eggs get?
How big? Not big. The pigeon, let's see. Okay, right here, this is a model of a goose egg. So a goose is a very large bird. I would estimate, let's see, I'm trying to find something. I'll just use my hand. That the passenger pigeon egg was, like the hole that I'm showing you was about that big compared to this. Very small, not a very big bird. The bird itself this is a peregrine falcon model. This is the size of a peregrine falcon. The passenger pigeon would have been, like about 2/3 the size of this. So not a very large bird. Bigger than Cooper, but not bigger than this peregrine falcon. Yeah, so not very large. And interestingly, with the passenger pigeon, the research that does exist about them shows that most of the time, they just laid one single egg because there were so many millions and millions of them breeding, and not all of them had the opportunity that they would only lay one egg, which is not a very successful strategy, because if that one egg doesn't make it or that one chick doesn't make it, then the population is not going to increase. And so if they had laid 2 or 3 eggs at a time, maybe they would have done a little bit better, but that one egg was a big problem to their success and unfortunately their eventual extinction. Okay, we're going to move across my screen. I'm going to go down. We have a class asking a question from Cambridge. Unmute yourself and ask your question. Go ahead.
You said threatened, endangered, extinct, but there was near threatened and there was vulnerable, but there wasn't threatened on the...
There was not, because threatened would be, in all honesty, threatened, endangered, extinct is a more American phrase. The Americans, we use the classification system as threatened, endangered, extinct, but the IUCN, which is international, went even farther. They said it's not good enough just to say threatened. They wanted it to be least concern, near threatened, vulnerable, which is the first one, which is getting into the endangered realm, endangered, and critically endangered. So the IUCN is just more expansive. Threatened, endangered, extinct is a more simple way of looking at not doing so well, doing bad, gone. So yeah.
So it's threatened in between vulnerable and near threatened?
Threatened would be considered near threatened and vulnerable, kind of merged together. Yeah. And then you have, of course, endangered and critically endangered, which both fit into the category of endangered. Good question, and good observation that you caught that yeah, the IUCN. Somebody's trying to join in real quick. I'm gonna just admit them real quick. Okay. Now I think I have a repeat hand raise up. I'm just going across my screen again. We're gonna go back to New Hampshire, and then Norwich, you be ready after New Hampshire.
Oh.
Sorry, Mr. O, I don't know who pressed that.
That's okay. No problem. If you think of something, let me know. Otherwise, we'll move over to Norwich. Go ahead.
What year did the dodo become extinct?
Year did the dodo become extinct? Oh my goodness, you're testing my history knowledge. A long time ago. I'm going to say, because I don't know the actual year, I could look it up in just a second, which I might do. I feel like by the year 1600, I think it might have already become extinct or was on the very last one. Somewhere between 1500. let's say 1650, it went, I don't know the exact year, but when it went extinct, it went extinct. You know, the dodo was a very large flightless bird, so it was very easy for them to say there's no more left. Sometimes with a smaller bird, there may be some hope that it still exists because it's so small or it lives in very remote areas. The dodo lived on one island. And so when the sailors decided it was gone, it was gone. There was no more dodos. But the exact year, I'm not exactly sure. So I will look it up. I hope you look it up. And maybe next class we will confirm what year. But somewhere between 1500 and 1650 is when it went extinct. Okay, going to the London class from upstairs.
They're not a
If you had a question, go ahead, unmute yourself. Unless your hand was just already raised up from before.
exactly.
All righty. If not, this might be a good time to end this call. So just to let you all know, we will have more Mr. O classes coming up. I think I have to look at my calendar. I should have looked before this class. I think I have one. I'm almost sure I have one next week. And I know a lot of you are already registered for it. So please join me next week. I can't remember if it's on Thursday or Friday. But I do hope to have that class with all of you. I hope all of you can make it. I also have not scheduled any more classes beyond that, but that's my homework for today and on Monday is for me to schedule a whole bunch more classes for you all to be able to join going forward for this whole school year. So thank you very much for joining today. And so this would be a time that if you would like to unmute yourselves, turn your cameras on, we can say hello, goodbye. See you next time.
Thank you, Mr. O.
Thank you, Mr. O.
Do you know the status of Cooper?
Sorry, one more time.
Do you know what the status of Cooper?
Cooper is of concern, but it's wild. But it's one of those things that he is a pet, which means that a lot of
the wild green.
and so that means that there's still a risk. Too much pressure to take wild pets. So he is one of those things we should always be to make sure it's not like the Carolina Parrot. He's at least concerned currently. I'm talking about Cooper.
Now I know from this.
All righty. Well, thank you all for joining, and I hope to see you next week for every time my classes. Goodbye.
Bye.
Hope you had fun. Hope you enjoyed seeing Cooper.